Welcome to another hash defined video. In this video, we are going to learn about the basics of HTML DOM APIs. Now, when your web browser loads a web page, it gets the page initially as HTML, which is in plain text format. Now, your web browser will parse this HTML code into a DOM structure called Document Object Model. And this is a tree structure, and you can see this if you right click on the page, if you have loaded the page in Google Chrome, and select the inspect option. So you can see the DOM tree on the right hand side pane, and as you hover the mouse over these elements, you can see the corresponding ones on the left are highlighted. Now the DOM APIs are a set of APIs which lets you interact with this DOM tree from JavaScript. You can read each of these elements, get their attributes and properties, traverse through this tree, modify, add or delete new elements, etc. So we're going to cover the basic HTML DOM APIs in this video, and for that you can go to the console of the browser where you can straight away type in JavaScript code. And if I type in document, this refers to the entire document on the left side, and document.body will correspond to the body element. Similarly, document.head corresponds to the head tags, which you can see here. So these are the head and body tags, and beneath it the entire content of the page is structured. Now each of this node which you see on the DOM tree is called an HTML element, and using JavaScript DOM APIs we can directly access programmatically these HTML elements. There are several methods. You can get access to an HTML element using its class name, using its ID, or using its selector. So the straightforward method is to get the selector of the element and use it to get the element. So selectors are strings which uniquely identifies any element on an HTML page. So for example, if I want to get the HTML element corresponding to the fifth title, I can right click on this and select inspect, and on the right side the corresponding element will be highlighted. You can see that it is an A tag. If I right click here and go to copy and select copy selector, the selector corresponding to that node is copied, and then we'll go to console and we will get the element as el equals document.query selector, and just paste in the element which we copied, and we will have to escape this backslash and hit enter, and el corresponds to the fifth title, as you can see on the left side. Now this is how we get the element using the selector. Now we'll see how an element can be obtained based on its ID. So if I scroll up, the main table has an ID hn main. So I can just copy this ID, again go to the console and write el equals document.getElement by ID, and I can paste in the ID and hit enter. Now el contains the table. You can see the entire table highlighted on the left. Now let's see how the elements can be obtained using the class name. So for that, so the titles of each of the submissions has a class name, title name. So if I copy this class name and go to console, then elements equals document.getElements by class name, because there are many elements, multiple elements on the page with the same class name. So what we get els is actually an array of elements. I can access each one of them using indexing. So el of 1 is this, of 10 is the 11th title, and so on and so forth. So now we know how to get the elements using their ID, the class name, or selector. Now let's see how to traverse the HTML tree using properties of the elements. So I have selected the sixth title in the variable EL. Now if I access the property previous element sibling, it's null. If I get next, oh, it's also null. Let's go to this comment. Let's inspect it. Let's copy the selector. Go to console. Go to console. And comments equals document dot query selector, and you can see the comments being highlighted on the left side. Now if I access comments dot previous element sibling, you can see that it refers to the past link here. Similarly, if I take the next sibling, it should go to the ask link. So comments dot next element sibling will go to the ask link, as you can see here also. Similarly, you can go for comments dot parent element, which goes to the parent node. So the parent or node of this element is the page dog. So that's why we get that element here. Now again, if I access the table body, copy selector, table body equals document dot query selector. Now tbody.children will correspond to the child elements. So we should actually go to this. Should have gotten this tbody selector. So tbody.children will be an array of all the elements who are child to the table. So these are all the table rows, and I can access each one of them. Let me put them into a variable called rows, and I can access them by indexing. See? So the children property gives all the child nodes of a given node, and you can also get the number of child elements using the child element count. So it has 92 child elements under the parent element. So now you have a basic understanding of how to traverse the DOM tree using the APIs. Now let's also see how to interact with them. For example, how to click on a link. So let's get the selector corresponding to the fourth title. So there has been an error, or we should have escaped the backslash. Now this corresponds to the fourth title. Now how do I click it? It's an A tag. You can just say dot click. And it will navigate to the new page or the linked page. And the page seems to be taking some time to load, but I can go back by just calling history.back command, and we are back on the Hacker News page. Now let's try, if I scroll down to the bottom, there is a form here. Let's see how we can programmatically using JavaScript DOM APIs, search for a keyword and pull up the search results. So for that, I will inspect the search box and I can see that it's an input, and I can access again this by its class name, its ID, or let's try it using its tag name. So this element has a tag name of input. So I can call document.getElements by tag name of input. Now if there are multiple input fields, this will have multiple entries, but here there is only a single input field. So we can assume that or confirm that this element, the queried element, corresponds to this input field. So I can name it as input equals document.getElements by tag name of input of 0. So you can see that the input box is highlighted when I access this element. Now I can set a value in this by just saying input.value equals Android. You can see that the text Android has been filled in the search box. Now we need to submit this form. So for that, let's get the form. Again, we can use the get elements by tag name of form of 0, and the form corresponds to that. So just call form.submit, and you can see the search has been performed by the submit action. Now one thing I forgot is that once you access an element, selected, now once you access this selector, it has several properties. For example, el.href points to the href property of that element. el.innerText gets the text inside the element. Similarly, there is outer text, also outer HTML, as well as inner HTML. Now these properties, we can actually write to these properties to make changes in the HTML or text. So let's try el.innerText equals hello world. You can see that the third element's title has been changed to hello world. So I hope you find this video useful. In case you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section. This was a very basic introduction to HTML DOM APIs, but most of the commonly used APIs has been discussed. If you find this video useful, please give it a like, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.